So you might be thinking, why is this person here? Let's try something. On the count of three, the person sitting here will change. 1, 2, 3.
Was I here before? I feel short again. You don't get to 6 rings, back-to-back championships, and the title of greatest of all time all on your own. If you watch The Last Dance, you know Michael Jordan's success could not have been possible without his team. Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, and the entire Bulls roster was imperative to the success of the Jumpman. Just like in basketball or in any other sport, in business you need to build and lead a team to success. Jordan's leadership style and competitiveness cemented the 90s Bulls as a legendary NBA team. It's been talked a lot about how Jordan leads, how he trash talks his own teammates during practice, how he gets into fights with teammates too, so obviously he had a lot of missteps. But there's still a lot we can learn. So today, we'll dive into those leadership lessons as well as what to avoid and how you can implement the best of Jordan in your business. But first, let's roll the intro. By the end of the week, you might have a validated business model you can dive into. It's never been easier to start a business. So before we go any further, let's talk about what is leadership. Now, I'm sure we've seen this picture floating around the internet 100 times before, and it depicts a leader versus a boss. Now, we can't hear what the picture is saying, but if it could talk, I think we would hear the boss turn to their team and say, go that way, and we'd hear the leader turn to their team and say, let's go this way. Now, the difference between that is the boss is directing and telling people to do something, whereas the leader is saying, let's go do this together. It's a collective effort. Now, this is interesting because Jordan, when he joined the NBA, he was a star player on his own. He was getting buckets, he was killing it, he was putting up great stats for himself. But his team wasn't up to par yet. And it wasn't until Michael Jordan led his team to be the best that they could be that they really started seeing success. Now, throughout this video, I think it's very important that we keep this one crucial quote from the Jumpman in mind. Michael Jordan said, winning has a price.
Winning has a price.
Leadership has a price.
And leadership has a price. So I pulled people along when they didn't want to be pulled.
I challenged people when they didn't want to be challenged.
I challenged people when they didn't want to be challenged.
But I never asked them to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. This leads us into our first point. Demand the best from your team. Now, like Mike said, you can't demand the best from your team if you're not putting up shots yourself. You can't march into a room and ask your designers and developers and your marketers and all that to do 110% when you're lounging around and watching Netflix. If you want your team to perform at their best, you gotta let them see that you're performing at your best too. If you want them to put in more hours, you can't ask them to do that until you put in more hours yourself. If you want them to learn more and go above and beyond for their client, they've gotta see you doing the same as well. Your team will respect you if you walk the walk before you talk the talk. The reason Jordan was able to get away with being so demanding was that even in scrimmages, even during practices, he was sweating. When they were running drills, when they were doing suicides, he was running faster than everyone else. If you want to earn the respect of your team and pull the best out of them, you've got to pull the best out of yourself first. Now, the reason Mike was outrunning his teammates during practice was because he believed that if you bleed in practice, you only sweat during the game. Now, there's famous tales of Jordan getting into fights and trash talking his teammates even during practice. But like Steve Kerr said, he was right. Steve Kerr said that if you couldn't handle the trash talk in practice, there was no way you could handle the pressure of the NBA playoffs. And he was right. Now, of course, you're not going to go around punching your coworkers in your office, and you should not. This is 2020. You're going to get into a lot of trouble for that. But what practice for you looks like is every single day. Pitching a new client, running new ads, testing new ideas, those are all forms of practice. It's very easy for creatives and entrepreneurs when we reach some sort of success or when we get to a place where we're getting regular paychecks that we start getting comfortable. And that's dangerous because when you're comfortable, that's when you plateau. I've personally noticed that when I'm comfortable with a client or again recurring revenue, I start to skimp on the very fundamentals that led me to where I am right now. And when you do that, it's a very slippery slope. Jordan would go to his teammates' hotel rooms, banging on the doors in the morning, pulling them out of bed for practice. You've got to show up every single day and shoot every single basket. The more you practice, the more prepared you are. So all those fake pitches you do in front of the mirror, or all the templates that you keep making, or all the concept photo shoots that you have by yourself, or all the concept designs you make, those are all in preparation for that one day you meet that one big customer and that one big client. Remember, luck equals opportunity plus preparation. Lesson number 3, fight for your team. Now, I actually had this section labeled "Fight with your team" before, which is not what I want to preach, but Jordan did. He did do a lot of that. He did fight a lot with his team, but he also had his team's back. When Scottie Pippen was getting into arguments about his salary being capped, or any of his other teammates had any issues with other players from opposite teams on the court, or any issues with the front office staff, Jordan was there to back them up. If your teammates don't feel like you have their back, they're not going to be open with you. If there's something going on in their lives, or there's something going on with the work, or if they mess up with a client or a customer, they're not going to feel like they can come to you and open up. Because if you don't have their back, they're not going to be transparent with you. Your teammates need to know that no matter what they mess up, or if they're sick, or if they miss a deadline, or whatever it is, you're there to back them up. You've got to fight for your team, so when the time comes for them to fight for you, they'll step up. Lesson number 4, pass the ball. Now, Jordan was not a ball hog. Yes, at the beginning of his career, he was getting all the points, he was getting all the buckets, it was all him. It was the Jordan show. But as the team grew and as his success and his ambitions grew, he knew that he had to pass the ball. And passing the ball was also good for his team because it gave people like Steve Kerr a chance to gain more confidence. I'm a big believer in confidence through competence. And if your team isn't scoring on their own and they're not becoming competent in their craft, they're never going to achieve confidence. Passing the ball to your teammates allows them to, of course, get confident in their abilities, but to reach their own goals. No one joined your team to help you get your Lamborghini and house in the hills. They joined your team because they felt that they could share in your vision and reach their goals simultaneously. When you pass the ball to them and you trust them to take the shot, they're going to return that favor to you. Remember, giving trust to your team helps them produce their best work. If you want them to take shots without you looking, you've got to pass the ball. Lesson number 5, watch their blind spots. When Jordan was on the court, he had his eyes everywhere. He was watching which teammate slipped where, who misdribbled the ball, who took a shot weird and how it bounced, and he would report that back to his team. He would tell them how to recognize a mistake and how to avoid it or improve on it in the future. Your job as a leader is to oversee the entire court, quote unquote. You need to know where your teammates are prone to stumbling and do 3 things. 1, you could avoid these spots entirely, which does no one any good. Number 2, you could catch them when they fall and push them on the way, which doesn't really help them grow. Or number 3, you can prepare them ahead of time to recognize and avoid these pitfalls entirely. Now, number 3 is where you want to go because remember, leadership is about helping other people grow. Not just helping you score baskets, but helping them score baskets on their own. Good leadership results in a team that is autonomous. When a team is autonomous, they can operate on their own and get work done without you being there. That's the goal of leadership. To A, get work done without you being there, and B, help people become the best versions of themselves. Now, 6 rings brings us to our 6th lesson. Lose like a champ.
I've lost almost 300 games.
Jordan won a lot, but he also lost a lot.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career.
You and your team will take L's. It's an inevitable part of business. But what matters the most is how you as a leader respond to those L's. During the lows is when your leadership will be tested the most. Your teammates will be looking to you for guidance. How are we going to weather the storm? How do we make it through this alive? How are you treating your teammates? Being a leader when everything is nice and rosy is easy. Anyone can do that. But being a wartime CEO when it's time to batten down the hatches and get your troops in order, that's when the real test is. If you want your teammates to keep their cool and marching forward, you've got to shield them from everything else happening outside. You've got to make them feel like no matter what happens, we got this, we're going to make it through, and this is just a short-term blip that we're going to overpass. Dust yourself off and keep it moving. Now, Jordan was super competitive and he hated losing. So bouncing back from failures and being a good leader for your team wasn't actually one of his strong suits. Yes, Jordan was a tyrant. He was demanding, abusive at times, just all around jerk. I think now is a fitting time to return to his quote that he had at the beginning of the video. Winning has a price.
Winning has a price.
Leadership has a price.
And leadership has a price. So I pulled people along when they didn't want to be pulled.
I challenged people when they didn't want to be challenged.
I challenged people when they don't want to be challenged.
But I never asked them to do something I wasn't willing to do myself. Now, when this quote first aired on The Last Dance, I was on Twitter and I saw tech bros and VCs alike going up in hurrah because they're like, I told you so. I told you that I wasn't being a jerk and I just had to be like this to win. They felt like because Michael Jordan had this attitude that they could also have this as what a winner needed to win. But this isn't true. Leadership requires empathy. You need to listen to your people and know how they're feeling and know when they're down and when they're up and how to influence them to get the best out of them. There's examples of Jordan publicly berating his teammates when they couldn't keep up in practice. and that it's not something you want to do. Berating teammates and making an example out of them leads to them resenting you, and resentment compounds. They resent you more and more as the weeks go on, and you'll never get the best work out of them. But what's important to note is that Jordan also took time taking care of his teammates and bonding with them. For example, when Dennis Rodman needed his 72-hour escapade to Vegas to blow off steam, Jordan didn't stop him. But when it was time to come back and do the work, Jordan sure enough knocked, said nothing about his escapades, just pulled him back. Letting your teammates do what they need to do to make sure they do their best work is key to you being a great leader. Now, one of the biggest lessons that you had to kind of read between the lines in to notice was that Michael wasn't a manager. He was a leader. He didn't manage his teammates, he led them. Now, here's the difference between management and leadership. Management is applied to things that are predictable or take a predetermined path. In today's day and age of entrepreneurship, creative work, and knowledge work, there's no one path to success. And because there's no predetermined path, you can't really manage that. Take Apple and Microsoft, for example. Two companies in a very similar field that took very different paths to get to success. Leadership starts on an individual level, catering to each and every team member, their own needs, their own wants, their own desires, and elevating them all from an individual perspective first. Jordan didn't count the number of reps his teammates did. He didn't tell Pippen to hold his hamstring stretch at 45 seconds instead of 30 seconds. Jordan told his team that they're there to fight a mission. They're there to do whatever it takes to win a title and become the best team in the NBA. However you get there is up to you. Jordan didn't manage his team. He didn't tell them to put up a certain number of shots or to do a certain number of lunges or whatever. Jordan told them we're on a mission and we'll do whatever it takes to get there. That's leadership. So whether it's Michael Jordan or Michael Scott, the type of leader you are attracts the type of followers you'll have. And boom, that's the end of today's video. If you watched Last Dance and you got thoughts on how Michael was a leader and if he did a good job at it or a bad job at it, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. So let me know. What did you think of The Last Dance and what do you think of Michael's leadership style? Are you the Michael Jordan of your business? Do you want to be the Michael Jordan in your business? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, insert the YouTuber boilerplate right here telling you to like, comment, subscribe, and like, comment, and 3 things. Make sure you do all of them before you leave the video. I would appreciate if you do all 3 of those things before you leave the video. I mean, you don't have to, but please do. And we'll see you next time.